We'll get started. Okay, we are picking up now chapter 29 of Genesis. The last time we had left off with Jacob is been sent off by his parents because Esau is intending to kill him after all that has happened to him. And when Jacob leaves, if you remember, he heads off and he has a dream. If you can remember what that dream was, he comes to this place. He'll later name Bethel, but he has a dream. And what is the vision? What does he see?
A ladder.
Yeah, go
going
ahead.
up and down to
There's a
heaven.
ladder or a staircase, something like that. Yeah, going between what?
The angels of God were ascending up and down it.
Heaven and earth.
Yeah, there's a ladder set up, a ladder or a staircase set up between heaven and earth, and on this up and down, I think it's more a staircase, but it's described as a ladder in our text. Up and down are going the angels of God. So it's a connection between heaven and earth that has been set up not by man. That's what the Tower of Babel was. A man's attempt to get back to the heavenly realms. This is heaven reaching down to earth now, coming down upon us, and he sees this vision of it and is in awe of what he is seeing. And it's within that vision that God speaks to him and reaffirms the covenant that he made with Abraham and with Isaac. I will remember the threefold things, the three things that he promises to Abraham and then to Isaac. Now he will promise to Jacob. What were the three things again?
Blessing,
Blessings,
descendants,
land.
and
the land. Exactly. So that same promise keeps coming down. Remember, we're kind of following this thread of salvation here. We know right now it's hanging with Jacob. So we know of all the people in the world, who was the son that God would choose to reveal himself through? He says it's Abraham. Okay, got it. But now Abraham is leaving the scene, and who is it? Well, it's Isaac. It is not Ishmael or any of the other sons of Abraham. And when Isaac has two boys, we now learn it's not Esau, it's Jacob. We're following Jacob now. So he sees that, he sets it in covenant and he receives it. So this grace is given to him. God promises to be with him, to bring him back. And he then says, if the Lord will do that, or since the Lord has given me these things, I will give to him 1/10 and he will be my God. So very important scene there. And we pick it up there now. He continues on his journey. Where is he heading, by the way?
Haran.
Uncle Laban.
Yeah, he's going to Haran to see Laban. And who is Laban?
Rebecca's brother.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Rebecca's brother is Laban. And he's going to there with a specific task in mind.
Get a wife.
To get a wife, right? We need descendants, and we need women. We're gonna have descendants, so he's looking for some women now, or at least a woman. He'll get a little bit more than he bargained for, but let's pick it up there. Genesis 29, 1-3. Bob Thomas, would you start us off here and read that verses 1-3?
Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. As he looked, he saw a well in the field, and behold, 3 flocks of sheep lying beside it. For out of that well the flocks were watered. The stone on the well's mouth was large, and when all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep, and put the stone back in its place over the mouth of the well.
Okay. All right, so we'll first note, it says that Jacob went on his journey, and where does he go to? Where's he arriving now? How's it described to us?
Land of the east.
Yeah, I came to the land of the east. Do you remember the significance of east in the Bible?
East is away from God.
Yeah. East is moving away from the Lord, and that, I think perhaps that's why it's described that way. We saw east earlier when Cain goes east of Eden. When the people who build the Tower of Babel settle in the east to do that. It's a direction away from the presence of the Lord. So we can see that Jacob is moving is leaving the promised land. It's kind of emphasizes that he's now moving away from the land that God has promised to him, toward Haran, but he describes it as moving toward the east. Now, what does he see? When he arrives there, he sees something.
A well in the field.
Okay, so we just have a description of the well. He sees a well in the field. Okay. And what are we told about this well?
It's covered.
Yeah, it's covered with a large stone. I could type with a large stone. And what's happening there?
There are 3 flocks of sheep there waiting to be watered.
Okay, so 3 flocks of sheep waiting for water, but the well is covered with a large stone, so they can't get anything just yet. And the shepherds were the ones who would roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep. So there are these 3 flocks, but apparently I don't know that there's any shepherds there just yet, or maybe they're coming. But that's sort of the picture for us. So we'll pick it up from there, verses 4 to 8. Laura, would you get that for us? 4 to 8.
Jacob said to them, "My brothers, where do you come from?" They said, "We are from Haran." He said to them, "Do you know Laban the son of Nahor?" They said, "We know him." He said to them, "It is well with him?" They said, "It is well. And see, Rachel his daughter is coming with the sheep." He said, "Behold, it is still high day. It is not time for the livestock to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go pasture them." But they said, "We cannot until all the flocks are gathered together and the stone is rolled from the mouth of the well. Then we will water the sheep."
All right. So Jacob asked them, what does he say? Where do they come from? And where do they come from? Where?
Haran,
Haran.
Where is that again?
Yeah, come from Haran, which of course is that's where his family is. That's where he's going. He's going to Haran. And he asked them, "Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor?" And they said, indeed, they know Laban. And what else they tell him?
that
come
he is well.
Yeah. Now, by the way, are these the shepherds he's talking to?
I think so.
Sounds like it.
Sounds like some of the shepherds.
Yeah, it could be. I think it's the hired hands. I'm gonna guess, because the shepherds would roll the stone from the mouth of the well in the water. So they would always have hired hands to help with the sheep, and so they would wait until all the sheep are gathered. Then the shepherds would be there to roll the stones away. So I'm gonna guess they're the hired hands, or maybe shepherds too. But I think they're still waiting on the shepherds, aren't they?
He addresses them as, well, this says my brethren, you're my brothers, so
Yeah,
it's
my
hard
brothers.
it's hard to say, but
Yeah. My brothers, he recognizes them as his people, I guess, in some sense. But I'm gonna put a little question mark there. But
Only 3 flocks, maybe that signifies that there's not enough to open the well.
yeah, maybe they wait till all they said the shepherds would roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep and put the stone back in its place over the mouth of the well. But they would only do that when all the flocks were gathered there. So they're waiting now. They get down there, and behold, it's still high day. It is not time for the livestock to be gathered together, water the sheep, and go pasture them. But they said, "We cannot until all the flocks are gathered together, and the stone is rolled from the mouth, and then we water the sheep." So it sounds like they're waiting for orders. They're waiting for their shepherds to come. But they do say they know Laban, and more so, this is the important part of the story.
There's his daughter coming too with the sheep, Rachel.
Rachel, Laban's daughter, is coming. All right. Does this story sound familiar to you so far?
Yeah,
Yes, when Rebecca was found for Isaac.
yep, she was coming for water for the camels, I think.
Yeah, this is very similar to Rebecca's story. Um, it's at a well. She's introduced to us, introduced at a well. This will be a little bit different, but it's kind of interesting. Again, there's a lot of parallelism in the stories, a lot of way that themes are replayed, reminding us of how this is going to work.
I got to imagine that being at a well is a pretty common thing. I mean, they're there daily, and you know, it's a big part of their lives is getting water for
Oh, yeah.
either their animals or themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder about the water too, because water is a big theme in the scriptures. What does water represent?
Life.
Water is life. Absolutely. Come to me, of living waters. Water gives life. Without water, it's only death. I mean, without water, everything is dead. And they know it. They see it. They see the results. When there is no water, it is death. Especially at that time when they didn't have the means that we have today to get water into places that have none. No, it's like if there's no water, it's death. Water is life, and so it is interesting that the Rebecca and first, and then now Rachel are brought into the story at a well, as if
It seems
symbolizing
that there's
life.
something. It seems that there's something about the well because it's covered. You don't hear about that very often, and they're waiting. They're waiting. It's like it's almost once they uncover it, it's get your water now, and then we got to cover it up real quick.
Yeah, yeah,
Why do they have to cover it?
that's a good question. Any thoughts on that? Do we have any thoughts on that one? I don't think we
Well,
know.
you wouldn't want to, you wouldn't want to pollute the only well in the area.
I'm sure it's for protection to keep it from pollution in some ways.
And
Until-
others,
Yeah,
other people.
yeah.
I wonder
Yeah.
if the stone is so big that you need multiple people to move the stone.
Probably.
It would
Yeah,
have-
probably. And again, it might be that these hired hands might be just young boys, even for all we know. Just kind of keeping track of the sheep and waiting for the men to come and to move it. So, all right. Well, either case, it's kind of interesting, but we want to get to our story here a little bit more. So let's pick it up there. Liz, you want to get the next section here, 9 to 12?
Certainly. While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Now, as soon as Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob came near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban's, flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father.
Okay. All right. So this is interesting here. Rachel comes down with her sheep, right? With her father's sheep. And what happens with Jacob now?
He moves the stone for her.
Yeah, Jacob, he sees Rachel. He knows now who she is. And what does he do? He comes near and he rolls the stone from the well's mouth, which is like a Herculean strength here. This guy somehow is inspired. There's the power of a woman in a man here.
That's right.
He just makes him. He becomes like a superhero all of a sudden. He comes here
Saw
and he
Rachel and boom, boom, boom.
moves the stone from the well's mouth by himself, apparently. and waters the flock. Now, again, this should remind us of something.
Rebecca watered the camels for Abraham's servant.
Yeah, Rebecca performs a Herculean task, if you remember, when Abraham's servant asked her if you'd bring me a drink of water, and she offers to give him water and to water his camels. And we talked about that before. I can't remember how many trips that would have taken for her to water those camels and how much they drank.
Yeah.
That's an enormous task, kind of
And
like what Jacob's
full.
doing here. So there's something going on in these scenes that are quite remarkable, and a powerful act of grace that he provides for her. And then Jacob, what does he do after he waters the flock?
He kisses Rachel.
Kiss. It wasn't like those movie kisses. I'm sure it was a very respectable kiss.
He still should have slugged them.
And weeps aloud. So here's the question. Why is Jacob such a baby here? Why is he crying? What's he upset about?
Because God gave
For
him such a beautiful wife.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's overwhelmed of just this serendipitous thing that he would just happen to come to this well, just like his situation with Isaac. He would happen to come to this well, and Rachel would happen to be there right when he's there, as if just a near immediate answer to the prayer. I would say really overwhelmed at God's grace in providing, just near immediately, and keeping his promises to him.
You gotta wonder if Abraham and Rebecca shared, not Abraham and Rebecca, Isaac and Rebecca shared the story of how Rebecca was brought to be his wife.
Oh,
And maybe thinking about that during this time.
Absolutely. Think about it. I mean, the kids back then didn't have smartphones, they didn't have TVs, they didn't have anything, they had nothing else to do but to tell their stories. You guarantee you they told stories. And they knew well. I mean, that's why we have such a genealogy of stories. They probably would have told them, Isaac would have shared not just that story, but all the stories that we've read about in Genesis would have been passed on to him. All those stories of how God covenanted with Abraham and brought them.
That's how they preserved a lot of the Old Testament.
Absolutely. And it makes perfect sense because, again, stories, we live for stories. We love stories. Who doesn't love a story? You know, we love stories. And when there are no movie theaters, there's no radio stations or TV stations, there's no books, even at this time. They told their stories, I'm sure, without doubt, and they would have told them with much more detail than what we have in our text as well. So, providing a wife, really keeping his promise of God's grace and God's faithfulness to his promises already, we see. Overwhelmed in this, that here he is, he's on the run and he's met the Lord, and now he comes and God just drops into his lap practically. Rachel, who is clearly the one, he knows this is, he was instructed to go get a wife from Laban, and here she is. There you go. And then Rachel's response is what? Let's see. What's Rachel's response to that?
To run and tell her father.
Rachel runs and tells her father. Isn't that what Rebecca did too? Didn't she run and tell her father and brother time? I remember.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of parallel with that last story that we had read. So, all right. Let's pick it up 13 and 14. Teresa, you want to get that for us?
Sure. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Jacob told Laban all these things, and Laban said to him, "Surely you are my bone and flesh," and stayed with him a month.
All right. So Laban now gets the news. So Rachel tells her father is Laban. And Laban hears the news, and what does he do now?
He welcomes them by hugging them and kissing them and brings them
Here-
to the house.
Yeah, he also runs out to meet him. Embraces, a lot of running going on here. Embraces and kisses him and welcomes him. That whole thing of kissing Rachel, just that sign of just devotion, of affection, of a welcoming and embrace, which is why, if you remember in the New Testament, in the Gospels, it wasn't just that Judas betrayed Christ, it was he betrays him also with a kiss. You know, a sign of affection, a sign of welcoming, a sign of, and to use that as the sign of this is the one you're going to arrest and kill. It's like that's, you betray your Lord with a kiss. That's a pretty awful thing to do.
Was that custom though? Over in Europe, people greet each other by kissing each cheek.
Mhm.
I wonder if that was also the
Yeah.
custom, that the kiss for Rachel was more of a welcome or.
It would not have been a romantic kiss.
No, it says greet each other with a holy kiss in the New Testament.
Yeah, yeah. It's an embracing her as his family kind of a thing. He is seeing this is his cousin, and he embraces her as his family. Clearly has hopes for more, but at this point, it's not a romantic kiss. They didn't do that kind of stuff like today. It was just different times, welcomes him, brings him to the house. Jacob tells Laban all the things that he's been through, and Laban's response, basically Laban hears the story, and his response is what?
Surely your family.
Yeah. You are my bone and my flesh. Where have we heard that before?
Adam and Eve.
Yeah, Adam and Eve. That's what Adam says of Eve. Flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. She shall be called woman. She was taken out of man. There's declaring a unity, a union of sorts with Jacob. He takes him, your family. You are part of him. That's a really big deal. That's a very big deal, especially then. My grandparents were being immigrants from the Middle East. The family was everything. You do anything for family. You don't trust anyone outside of family. Family is a big deal. There's the ins and the outs in the world. Ins is family, outs is not family. And so you will do anything. If your family is in trouble, no matter how awful these family people may be, they're family. And you take care of them. That there's that bond that you have with them. And so you're wound together. Your futures are entwined. And so that's the Laban is clearly receiving Jacob in that way in this passage here. So let's pick up our next. I'm going to start a new page here so we can see a little better. Verse 15 to 20. We leave off here. Bob Fowler, you want to get this for us here? 15 to 20.
Then Laban said to Jacob, because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be? Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel. Laban said, it is better that I give her to you than I should give her to any other man. Stay with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her.
Okay. All right. So Laban makes a deal here. So Laban is to Jacob, you're my kinsman, your family. Laban offers basically a payment for his service. So Jacob's going to come and live with them and serve with them. what shall your wages be? Jacob's request is what?
Give me the pretty one.
It is for, let me see what we got here. Oopsie. Okay, so Jacob's request is, so he says 2 daughters, and Jacob says Jacob loved Rachel.
Oops, Rachel.
And why did he love Rachel?
She was the pretty one.
Yeah, she was beautiful. In form and appearance. I'm curious if there's a difference between, what does form and appearance mean?
Maybe the insides and the outsides.
Perhaps, yeah, she had, I mean, her appearance, she's lovely features. She's physically attractive, but I think for also perhaps in the way she presents herself with grace and form, but she's clearly the focus is on the outer part of her appearance to him, that is drawing her to him. She thinks she's very attractive, or as they say today, she's hot, right?
Yeah, I see the form being her, her bodily shape, yeah, her figure,
Yeah,
and appearance being her beauty.
yeah. Let me see if I got any notes on that here. If they have any, just doesn't say exactly here. Okay. All right, but that's gonna be interesting now. Jacob does not love Leah, and regarding her, what is it said about her?
Her eyes were weak.
Her eyes were weak. Does anybody have a note on that? What that means?
Probably needed glasses, but they didn't have them, so she squinted a lot.
Her eyes were weak. I think that's a phrase. Let me see if I can find if there's a note on that of how it's, because I noticed there's a footnote in here. I don't have a link to it.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah.
Says lovely eyes, the adjacent modifying eyes is often translated as weak, but lovely is the more probable word.
Her eyes were lovely.
I have,
It says on 17, lovely eyes, and then it says the adjective modifying eyes is often translated as weak, but lovely is the more probable, which means they're interchangeable. That doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make
I've got a study Bible. I have a study Bible that says probably means they were pale colored rather than dark and sparkling eyes most common. Such paleness was viewed as a blemish.
Huh.
I just
Okay.
looked up what that mark was
Yeah.
for in the ESV on my phone, and it says or soft. Leah's eyes were weak or soft.
Okay, I have another translation. This is
Yeah.
from 1901. This one says that they were tender. Leah's eyes were tender.
it seems like it would mean something that made her less than Rachel.
Maybe she was just like not mature enough. Maybe Jacob saw her as more childlike, possibly, and Rachel is more womanly.
It's really curious. Or I'm wondering if it's is the emphasis that Leah is not as physically attractive as Rachel, but there is sort of an inner beauty to her. If she has sort of there's a tenderness to her, there are some qualities to her that are virtuous. I don't know, but I mean, it clearly distinguishes Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance, so that Leah was, whatever that means, Leah was not beautiful in form and appearance, whereas Rachel was. But there's something less attractive. This is a good question. I should look that up a little
Well,
bit.
clearly we know that he wanted Rachel, not Leah.
Yes, he clearly does. There's no question about that. And what does he say? What is his, what will he do in order to get Rachel?
Worked for 7 years.
Okay, Jacob will work for 7 years for Rachel. Laban is fine with that. And so Laban is fine. Laban accepts. And Jacob serves for 7 years. And tell me about those 7 years.
That's God's number.
Yep.
It's God's number. It is a good, complete number. Absolutely. Tell me about those 7 years. How did Jacob experience them?
They felt short because he loved Rachel so much.
Like a few days because of his intense love for her.
It's kind of interesting because this is totally different from his mother's experience. I mean, they basically just handed her over with didn't they also give them sheep to take back?
Yeah, well, it was, the difference is that if you remember, the servant went up there to find a wife and bring her back.
Right.
In this case, Jacob is going to find, he can't go back right now. Esau will kill him if he goes back right now. So he's going to be there for quite some time before he goes back. So 7 years, he knows it's going to be a long time. He's intending to live up there with them for quite some time, until things cool, until he gets word that things have cooled down with Esau. And it's going to take a little
But it's
time.
like but he can't get his wife for 7 years.
But hey, 7 years. What's 7 years?
Yes.
By the way, the guy is, I believe, if I did my math, Jacob's about 70 years old.
70?
when- Yeah, it changes the story, doesn't it? It's about 70 years old when
Wow.
when he gets on his way there.
Wow.
I'll have to go and find that. I did the calculation before, and I'm like, it was appalling to think, oh, I didn't want to know that. He's an older guy. It's not some Romeo and Juliet love story. It's like some old guy, you know.
Well, you know, they did live longer, so you would think that they were healthier longer.
I'm sure he didn't look like he was 70. you know.
Hey,
But-
there's nothing wrong with 70, I'm telling you.
Yeah, dude's a stud, man. Rachel's probably 20.
So yeah, I mean, she could be a teenager. I mean, it gets a little creepy if you think about it too much. So we're not going to go there.
Yes.
So Jacob served 7 years, but like a few days, because of his love he had for her. All right, now we pick it up. This is where it gets interesting. In 21 down to the next paragraph there. Rob, you want to get that for us? 21 down to 30.
Then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife that I may go into her for my time is completed. So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast. But in the evening, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. Laban gave his female servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be her servant. But in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me? Well, Laban said, it is not so done in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years. Jacob said so, and completed her week. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his female servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel to be her servant. So Jacob went in to Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and served Laban for another 7 years.
I bet that
All right.
7 years was really long.
Yeah. Let's talk about this one here. Boy, a little awkward here.
Well, what they talk about at the dinner table. That's
oh,
really
God.
awkward.
So Jacob completes the 7 years. And then he requests his wife, okay. And
He finds
requests-
out he should have got it in writing.
requests his wife. Now, Laban, this is interesting here because Laban, the story sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yes. It sounds like it kind of sounds like the deception that Jacob did.
It does, doesn't it? Now, I can skip ahead and tell you this much. Leah is God's chosen one. Jacob loves Rachel, but God has chosen Leah, and you're going to see that because we know that the salvation comes through Leah. It's through Leah that you not only have the kings of the tribe of Judah, but you also have the priests and the Levites come from Leah. She is the one.
So
whom-
again, Laban's doing God's work without whether he realized it or not.
Yes, Laban deceitfully, who is, I don't give him the same credit as I give his sister in this. But even so, Laban deceives Jacob.
Wouldn't Jesus also come from that line?
Yes, yes.
Yes, but but through Rachel, we'll get Joseph and this tremendous picture of Christ. I mean, it's kind of a
You will. But you know what? It's Leah who is buried with Jacob, not Rachel.
right.
She is honored. She really is the most honored of them all. And again, it's not the one that Jacob wanted, just like we saw with Isaac. Basically, Laban deceives Jacob into marrying, I'm going to say, the right or God's choice. Laban, did he get a vision from God, or is he just for his own selfish means or whatever it is? He doesn't want to marry off the younger. He feels like Leah is going to be stuck. And so he makes sure Leah has a mate. He's taking care of his daughter. That's fine. But he marrying to God's choice, he deceives him in this way. But remember, why does Jacob want Rachel?
Because he likes the way she looks.
Yeah,
It's the worldly vision.
because of
Flesh.
his desires. Just like the same reason Isaac loved Esau, because of his desires. He loved the food, and Jacob here is the only thing. It's not that God gave Jacob a word. This is the one. There's 2 daughters there, and Jacob clearly, I think perhaps that Jacob should have, rightfully speaking, as he says here, we don't do this. You don't give the younger before the firstborn. You should have married Leah. She's the one you should have taken. Again, you're an old guy too. It's like you take the one, she needs a husband, take care of her. It's not all this romantic stuff, we don't do that around here. This is about real practicality of taking care of our people here. And Laban was deceitful in letting him think that he was getting Rachel.
Yeah, well, Jacob, if he had just lit an oil lamp on the wedding night, this would have all been solved. But
I guess they didn't look in each other's faces like that. I'm telling you, it wasn't a very romantic time back then. All right.
I'm
we don't
guessing
wanna
there
get-
wasn't a lot of talking either.
Yeah. So,
I find it interesting.
it just
that-
cracks me up in the passage here because it says, when the morning came, behold, it was Leah with an exclamation point.
yeah.
I find it interesting that this is the first place that I've seen where they refer to a week for 7 years.
So he gives her complete this week with this one, and we will give you the other. So you're gonna have 1 week of, kind of establishing this union here. So the deal is, so Jacob will have Leah for 7 days first. Sort of, I guess that establishes sort of like a honeymoon or whatever you want to call it, but that establishes to consummate and establish their union. And then when will he get Rachel?
7 more years.
Does he have to wait 7 more years?
No, he'll work 7 more years.
Work 7 more years. So then he will get Rachel, and will then have to stay another 7 years after that.
Okay,
So it's not as if Laban is saying, sucker, you got to wait 7 more years to get your wife. I'll give you right now, and then you'll work another 7 years for me here.
but when I saw it said, complete the week of this one, I was thinking that he was saying the week being the 7 years that you had promised for the first one. Okay,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah,
And this is like, the idea of marrying 2 sisters is really frightening to me. This
What a
point here.
great way to start some sisterly love.
God,
I had 5 of them.
God. I can't think of anything worse. Okay. So complete the week, and Jacob does so, and completes the week. Laban gives him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. All right, so now we have the setup here. So Jacob is married to Leah, and who is Leah? So we'll talk about Jacob's wives and servants, and these are going to be coming into play. We have Leah is given who?
Zilpah,
Leah and Zilpah. And then it's Rachel and
Bilhah.
Bill,
okay,
H.
Bilhah. Okay. So, and then what do we have here? He goes into Rachel too, so therefore he's consummated both marriages. They're not really married until it's consummated. That's when they have that first intercourse, and then it's official. And we're told at the very conclusion of this, verse 30, Jacob loves Rachel more than Leah. So you see this pattern between siblings here. It happened with Esau and Jacob. It's happened before, and now it happens here with these 2 siblings, Rachel and Leah, where one is more favored by the husband, by the man, by the world, and the other is despised. And that is going to move to the next, to finish this chapter here. Let's see where we leave off here. Jack, did you read yet? I can't remember. If you want to get that for us. We'll just finish up the chapter 31 to 35.
When the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, because the Lord has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me. She conceived again and bore a son, and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. Again she conceived and bore a son, and said, now this time my husband will be attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore his name was called Levi. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah. Then she ceased bearing.
Okay. The Lord then opens Leah's womb, and why does he do it?
Make,
Because he feels mercy for her, she's hated.
Yeah, yeah. The direct connection. The Lord blesses and loves the one who is hated. Like there's this battle now between this constant battle with the Lord on the one hand and the world, and we see that all the time where the one whom the world rejects becomes the cornerstone, becomes the one that is blessed. The one that the world curses will be blessed. The one that the Lord blesses will be cursed. It's like there's this conflict here when the Lord sees that Leah is despised by her husband.
well,
He doesn't, he loves Rachel more than her. He doesn't want her, and he describes her to see that Leah was hated. It wasn't that Jacob had malice toward Leah.
no, she had a lot of kids.
Yeah, it simply means that he did not. It was that hatred in a sense of like a distance from her, a rejection of her, or just even a coldness toward her. It's not that he's trying to hurt her or anything like that. There's no malice and evil he intends toward her. It's just that hatred is simply he does not love her.
And clearly she felt this because of the names she was giving her children were reflections for a few of them of, maybe he'll love me now.
Yeah. She feels that, and so it's described as hatred. So that's why, when we talk about, when God says, Jacob I loved and Esau I hated, it doesn't mean again that God is actively hating and wishing malice upon Esau, but rather he's chosen Jacob, and he's the one that he's chosen for a special devotion, and he has not chosen Esau. Same thing here. Jacob has clearly chosen to put his affection upon Rachel, and he is drawn to her, and he does not have that bond and union with Leah. So the Lord opens her womb, and so he opens Leah's womb, and it's interesting. She has 4 kids right away. First one is called Reuben. What does his name mean? Anyone have a note on that?
Firstborn son, I think.
That's the firstborn. Is that what Reuben means? Firstborn by affliction. I have to look at my notes here.
A son, what my Bible is saying.
Let me see if I got it here. He's the firstborn. Does his name mean something?
Look, a son.
Look, a son.
Mine
Okay.
says, look, a son.
All right, we'll take that. A son. She's very excited about this here. And what does she say? She attributes to the Lord. She's a woman of faith. Leah is really you're to see Leah as really a model of faith here. And so we're going to try to understand her actions. But she's clearly, look at how she speaks. Every time she has a son, how does she think about this child? Who does she attribute this to?
To the Lord.
Yes,
As a-
the Lord has looked upon my affliction. Now maybe my husband will love me, will appreciate me, that I can bring to him a son. I don't know if it works or not, but she conceives again. And maybe that was the case. Maybe he does change his mind about her and goes into her again, and she conceives. And this one's named Simeon. And what does his name mean? You got notes on that? Notes,
It says hearing.
means
Go ahead.
Mine says hearing, so maybe she's hearing that she's not.
Mine says he heard.
He heard.
So probably referring to God heard her.
God heard. And so the Lord has heard that I am hated. Okay, and then we have Levi, which means footnote on that. I can't access my footnotes on this thing here, so
He will
Join.
become attached, mine says.
united or joined. Joined
united.
sometimes means joined in harmony.
Okay, and so Levi is united or joined in harmony, which is, she says about that. This, my husband will be attached to me because I've borne him these. My husband will be attached to me.
Sort of
Yeah.
sad to hear her story, to see how lonely she is. Even with 4 kids and a servant, she just craves the love. The
Yeah,
Lord loves her,
yeah, it's a
obviously.
heartache. It really is a heartache, isn't it?
Mm.
Of feeling that despised or just not cared for by the one who is your husband. You never really were wanted. You were not the one that he wanted. It's a terrible rejection. The last one is Judah, and that means what? Praise.
Praise, yeah.
I will give grateful praise.
I will praise the Lord. Okay. And then she ceased bearing. So these 4 sons we'll come back to. Set it up for her, and she, at least for the moment, she stops bearing kids. But notice with them all, you can feel in them the rejection of Jacob and the love of the Lord.
Yeah.
In the bearing of these 4 kids. Every time the Lord, he has looked upon me, unlike my husband, and
Yeah.
he has seen my affliction. The Lord has heard that I am hated. Maybe my husband will be attached to me finally, but I will praise the Lord. And so there's this joint theme of, which is all throughout the scriptures, that the ones whom God has chosen suffer affliction and hatred and rejection in the world, and yet they are loved by the Lord.
Mm.
And life comes through them, and salvation comes through them. That seems to be the common pattern throughout. If you go right back to the beginning of the 2 brothers of Cain and Abel, the one the Lord accepted was Abel, and he's murdered by his brother. The affliction of this world, the acceptance of God, all coming together and all culminating, being fulfilled. Finally, it's all setting it up so that you can see when the Messiah comes, he is not loved by the world or anyone in the world. He is despised and rejected, and yet fully accepted, and the way to the Father is through him, through the cross. So, all right, we'll break it here. Any last comments or questions before we go?